The rhythmic beat of drums shakes the air, their sound vibrating through the dense forest, reaching the hearts of every villager. The drumming is fast, insistent, as if the earth itself is calling for something ancient, something powerful. It is an omen, and all eyes are drawn to the fire at the center of the village. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Elders exchange hurried words, their faces shadowed with both fear and urgency. In their voices, there is a tremor, an unspoken warning. They speak of the sacred mask, its legend older than the oldest trees, its power both revered and feared. The villagers listen, their hearts quickening, knowing that tonight something will unfold, something neither seen nor spoken of for generations. The fire flickers, casting long dancing shadows, and within its glow appears the mask. It sits upon the earth, a silent, foreboding presence. Its surface shimmers with an otherworldly light, catching the flames in a hypnotic play. It is a mask like no other, made of wood, carved with intricate symbols that pulse faintly with a power older than the village itself. The villagers hold their breath, for the mask, though motionless, seems to breathe life into the night. Among the gathered crowd, one figure stands apart from the rest. His gaze, fixed upon the mask, betrays a struggle, a pull so strong it is almost physical. Despite the elders' murmurs, despite the warnings etched into every word of the village's history, his feet move without his command, inching closer, the rest of the world blurring around him. The mask calls to him, a force he cannot explain, a desire he cannot shake. Kofi stands at the edge of the crowd, his mind battling his heart. He knows the danger, knows the curse the elders speak of. Gaze upon the mask twice, and madness will follow. Yet his curiosity burns brighter than his fear. His hand trembles as he stretches it toward the mask, feeling its energy pull him in, an irresistible force that promises both truth and destruction. The elders continue their warnings, but Kofi hears them as if from far away. Their words are no longer enough to hold him back. He steps forward, heart hammering in his chest, torn between the fear of what he does not understand and the desire to know more. The village's fate is in the balance, they say, and Kofi's soul knows that the answer may lie in the mask, but so does the danger. The drums beat louder, faster now, as if urging him forward, as if the village itself holds its breath, waiting for him to make a choice. He is at the crossroads of destiny, one glance away from a power that could either save or destroy them all. But there is more to the mask than just power. There is a secret buried deep within its history, a dark truth that the elders dare not speak aloud. And as Kofi stands on the edge of this revelation, he senses it, a whisper in the air, a hint of something far darker than mere magic. The mask, he realizes, holds not just power, but a past long forgotten, one tied to the very heart of his people. The fire crackles, the mask glows brighter, and Kofi's heart races. His fate and the fate of the village now rests in a single decision, to look or to walk away. The village of Jiraba lies at the edge of the great forest, its roots deeply tangled in the earth. The elders speak often of its connection to the land, of how the spirits of their ancestors still walk among them, unseen but ever present. The air here is thick with history. Ancient rites and rituals are woven into every moment of life, from the planting of seeds to the sharing of stories around the fire. Jiraba thrives on tradition, but there is a shadow that hangs over the village, a secret that stirs when the drums beat at night. The elders gather in the center of the village, their faces drawn with the weight of their words. Their speech is slow, measured, wrapped in riddles that make the villagers uneasy. They speak of the sacred mask, its power and curse, but their words are never clear. They speak in circles, hinting at things that are too dangerous to be fully understood. A whisper passes among the villagers. The mask must never be seen twice, they say, but no one knows why. Among the younger ones, there is one who listens closely to the elders' words. Kofi. His sister Adama sits beside him, her eyes heavy with the same knowledge that burdens the village. She leans toward him, her voice low as she begins to tell him the story of the mask. It was made long ago, Adama says, her voice steady but filled with caution. A powerful artifact, forged by the spirits themselves. It holds the power to grant unimaginable strength, but at a cost. You see, it was never meant to be seen, not by any man, woman, or child. The legend says that whoever gazes upon it twice will either wield great power or fall into madness. No one has ever returned the same. Kofi listens intently, his curiosity burning despite the warning in his sister's voice. And the curse? He asks, barely able to suppress the rising question in his heart. What happens if someone dares to look at it twice? Adama's gaze hardens. It is said that they are consumed by the mask. Its power takes hold, shaping their soul. They become something else, something not entirely human. She pauses, her eyes dark with the weight of their people's past. Some believe the mask is the reason we have lost so much. The elders never speak of it openly, but they fear its curse more than they fear death itself. Kofi is troubled, but his mind spins with the possibility. If the mask holds such power, could it save the village from the suffering that now grips them? The crops fail, the animals are sick, and a deadly disease spreads like wildfire through the village. The people are desperate, and Kofi feels a strange pull toward the mask, a pull he can't ignore. As the elders convene again, the mood grows darker. They have seen no way out of the disaster, and their desperation leads them to an ancient solution. The ritual, a sacred ceremony that, according to legend, can call upon the mask's power, if the village is willing to risk everything. We must, one elder says, his voice thick with fear. We must take the mask. Only it can save us now. But the mask is not so easily controlled. Its power is as unpredictable as the wind, and it has been dormant for so long. To call upon it is to gamble with their lives. In the midst of the growing tension, a stranger arrives. She is a woman, tall and graceful, with eyes that seem to carry the weight of many lifetimes. Naya. She comes from a distant land, and as soon as she steps into the village, the elders grow silent, their faces filled with suspicion. She claims to know more about the sacred mask than any of them, more than even the oldest elder. Her words are both alluring and unsettling. I have seen the mask, she says, her voice steady. I know its secrets. I know its power, the villagers murmur, unsure whether to trust her or turn her away. Kofi stands at the edge of the crowd, his mind torn. Is Nia a blessing, offering the village a way out of its suffering? Or is she a curse, sent by forces beyond their control to tempt them into making a terrible mistake? As the elders debate, Kofi feels the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The mask, the ritual, Naya, it all feels like a storm swirling closer, and he is caught in its path. He cannot shake the thought that the mask may be the only way to save his people, but at what cost? The legend looms larger with each passing moment. The mask holds a power that can destroy or protect, but its true nature is a mystery wrapped in darkness. No one knows who will emerge from its grasp unscathed. And yet, the village must decide whether to face its fate or let it consume them all. Nia steps into the village, her presence an unsettling ripple in the calm of Jiraba. The air shifts, thick with suspicion. The villagers turn their heads as she moves, eyes darting between her and the elders. Her foreignness is clear. Her clothes, her mannerisms, everything about her sets her apart. The elders, usually unflappable, exchange looks, their eyes sharp with mistrust. They whisper in the language of the old ones, their words heavy with the weight of centuries. "She carries secrets," one elder mutters, his voice low. Her eyes, dark and knowing, scan the crowd as she speaks. "I come to offer help," she declares, her tone calm but firm. "I know of the sacred mask. I have seen its power, and I know how to use it to save your village." The elders stiffen at the mention of the mask. One of them steps forward, his hands trembling. "The mask is not a tool for saving. It is a curse, a force that will destroy anyone who dares to wield it." Nia's gaze does not falter. "It can save, but only if the right person faces its trial," she replies, turning her eyes to Kofi. "You, young one, you are the one the mask calls to, but only if you are brave enough to take on the trial." Kofi feels the weight of her gaze, like a chain pulling him forward. "Trial?" he repeats, his voice rough. "What trial?" Nia's lips curl, slightly a faint, sorrowful smile. "The mask tests you. It demands a sacrifice, something precious. You must face its power once again, or watch your village perish." A murmur runs through the crowd. Some eyes widen in fear, others in doubt. The elders shake their heads, their voices rising in protest. "Do not listen to her!" one elder commands. "This is madness!" But Nia's words linger, thick with the promise of a choice that could change everything. Kofi's heart races. He has always been one to question, to seek answers beyond what others tell him. Yet the mask, the legend of its curse, has always terrified him. Was he ready to face it again? In the days that follow, the village grows quieter, the air heavy with sickness. The crops are wilting, the disease spreading. The once bustling village now seems hollow, like the heartbeat of Jiraba has slowed. The whispers grow louder. Some say Nia is the village's salvation, while others fear her presence. They wonder if she has come to exploit the mask's power for her own gain. One evening, Kofi stands near the village's edge, his mind racing. He feels the pull of the mask, its power haunting his thoughts. Nia approaches him silently, her footsteps soft on the dry earth. She stops just behind him, her presence almost a comfort. "You see it, don't you?" she asks, her voice like a gentle breeze. The mask's power is not just about strength. It's about understanding. You've seen the way. Your people suffer. The mask can change that, but only if you dare to look at it again. Kofi clenches his fists, his breath coming faster. "But I've heard the stories. The curse. What if it's too much? What if I lose myself?" Nia places a hand on his shoulder. "I understand your fear. I once faced the mask too, and I lost everything. My people, my family. It destroyed them." Her voice falters for a moment, but she steels herself. "But I returned because I believe it can be stopped. I believe you can stop it." Kofi turns to her, his eyes full of questions. "Then why come to Jiraba? Why now?" She looks away, her gaze distant. "I have my own reasons, but I know this. The mask can't be allowed to remain in its resting place. It will destroy this village just like it destroyed mine. I've seen it before. I've lived it." Kofi's mind swirls with the weight of her words. The village is dying, and the only chance for survival might lie in the hands of a stranger with a dark history. But can he trust her? As the days pass, the tension in the village grows. Some believe in Nia's promise, holding on to hope that the mask will save them. Others fear her, convinced that she seeks to manipulate them for her own benefit. The divide deepens turning once friendly faces into quiet, guarded strangers. Kofi's inner turmoil becomes more unbearable. He knows the elders would never agree to Nia's plan, but the mask is his only chance to help the people he loves. The pressure builds, tightening his chest. He cannot escape it. Then the moment arrives. Nia confronts him, her eyes burning with an intensity he has not seen before. "You must decide now," she says, her voice low, urgent. "Do you trust me and face the mask? Or will you let this village die for your hesitation?" Kofi's pulse quickens. The mask, the trial, the unknown, everything hangs in the balance. He stands at a crossroads, one step away from choosing his fate and the fate of his village. The weight of the decision crushes him, and for the first time, he realizes looking at the mask a second time could change everything, and that change may either save or doom them all. The question lingers in the air, unanswered, but in his heart, Kofi knows that soon he will have to face the mask and the curse that comes with it. The villagers gather beneath the full moon, their faces tense, their hearts heavy. The rhythmic pounding of the drums fills the air, a sound that quickens every breath. Kofi stands at the center, his body taut with nervous energy. Nia stands beside him, her eyes fixed on the ground, as if bracing herself for something greater than both of them. The moonlight dances on the edges of the sacred mask, now placed before them on a stone altar. Its presence is overwhelming, a silent call to all who stand within its reach. The air crackles with energy, thick and electric, as the people fall into silence, awaiting the next step. Kofi's heart pounds in his chest, his hands trembling. He can feel the weight of the mask's power pressing down on him, urging him to take that final step. With each beat of the drum, his resolve weakens, the fear creeping into his bones. "Do you understand what you are about to face?" Nia's voice cuts through the tension. She speaks without looking at him, her gaze locked on the mask. Once you look into it, there is no turning back. Kofi nods, though his mind is a storm of doubts. His feet move forward of their own accord, his eyes drawn to the mask as if by an unseen force. The crowd holds its breath. Kofi's gaze locks with the mask, and time seems to stretch, his heart a drumbeat of its own. The forest around them seems to shift, the trees groaning, their limbs creaking as if waking from a deep slumber. The air grows thick, dense with something ancient, something alive. Strange whispers curl around the edges of his mind, and for a moment the ground beneath him seems to tremble. As his eyes remain fixed, a dark energy stirs in the air. The wind picks up, howling as it rattles through the trees. Kofi feels the power of the mask surge through him, his body twitching with each passing second. His pulse quickens, and a flood of visions slams into his mind. Visions of cities burning, of people screaming, of worlds falling apart. The face of the first ruler, twisted with greed and fury, appears before him, its eyes locked onto his own. The mask is not just a tool of power, it is a gateway to something far darker. The curse has begun to take root, and Kofi feels himself slipping, his mind splintering under the weight of the visions. The trees around him whisper louder, their voices growing frantic, pleading for him to surrender. His body shakes, his knees buckling under the pressure. The villagers watch, horrified, as Kofi struggles to maintain control. Sweat drips from his brow, his muscles straining as if they were being pulled from the inside out. And then Nia's voice, soft but urgent, cuts through the chaos. "You must fight it, Kofi." Her words are a lifeline, a call to pull himself back. It is not too late. Kofi struggles to focus, to find a piece of himself in the sea of visions and whispers. The curse is powerful, but so is his will. The ruler's spirit fights for control, but Kofi's strength, born from his people and his love for them, refuses to yield. His breath comes in short gasps, each one a battle. The dark force within him claws at his soul, threatening to consume him. But just as his mind threatens to snap, he hears Nea again, her words piercing the fog that clouds his thoughts. "You are not alone," she says, her voice trembling. "I am bound to this mess too. I share this curse with you." The truth hits Kofi like a storm. Nea is not merely an ally. She is trapped, just as he is, bound by the same curse that has held the first ruler for centuries. The weight of their shared suffering hangs between them, a bond stronger than fate itself. As if reading his thoughts, Nea steps forward, her face pale but resolute. "We must destroy it," she says, her voice breaking. "Together, before it claims us both." Kofi looks at her, his eyes full of confusion and horror. "But how? What is the cost?" Nea steps closer, her hand reaching for his. "To break the curse, one must give all. The mask must be destroyed, but at the cost of the soul that dares to challenge it." Kofi's heart races, the choice now laid bare before him. He knows the truth. Destroy the mask, and he will lose himself, his soul bound to the eternal prison of the first ruler. But to leave it intact would mean the destruction of his village, his people, his world. A shudder runs through him, the weight of the decision bearing down with the full force of the curse. The whispers grow louder, more insistent, urging him to give in, to let the mask consume him. He looks at Nea, her face etched with pain and resolve, and he knows what he must do. His breath is ragged, his thoughts a jumble of fear and determination. "We destroy it," he says, his voice barely a whisper. "Together." Nea nods, her eyes closing for a brief moment as she steels herself. She knows the cost, but it is a price they must pay. With a final defiant breath, Kofi steps forward, his hands trembling as he reaches for the mask. The air around them vibrates with an unearthly energy, and the ground shakes as if the earth itself is protesting their decision. The mask pulses in his hands, its power threatening to overwhelm him, to drag him into the abyss. But Kofi holds, firm. The curse can no longer have him. He will break it, and with one final anguished cry, he smashes the mask onto the stone, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. The dark energy howls, a final scream of defiance before it collapses into nothingness. The villagers watch in stunned silence as the air clears, the whispers fading into the night. Kofi stands, his chest heaving, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. But he has done it. The curse is broken. Kofi's body begins to shake violently, his strength leaving him. He feels his soul slipping away, the final price of his choice taking hold. But as he looks to Nea, he knows they are not alone. Their sacrifice, their shared fate, has brought them together in the end, and in that final moment, as the full moon hangs heavy in the sky, the village is saved. But Kofi knows that the cost of salvation is always steep, and the future, his future, is now uncertain. The curse has ended, but what remains in its wake will shape their destiny forever. Kofi stirs in the stillness of the night, his body heavy, his mind a blur of fragmented memories. He blinks, confusion clouding his vision. His skin feels strange, as though it is not entirely his own. The horrors of the mask, the visions, the power, the curse, linger like a shadow in his mind. His chest rises and falls erratically, his breath sharp and uneven. The weight of the mask's touch has scarred him, and though his eyes open to a new dawn, the darkness of the curse still clings to his soul. The village, once crumbling under the curse's grip, now lies still in the embrace of the morning. The air is fresh with the scent of new life. The crops, once dry and lifeless, now burst forth from the earth, rich and abundant. The rivers flow with strength, and the land seems to hum with a vitality that was long lost. Disease, which had withered the villagers, has vanished, leaving behind only the whispers of its passing. As the villagers gather in the central square, their faces lit with joy, Kofi stands in silence watching them. He can feel their happiness, yet something inside him remains cold. The cost of their salvation lingers on his heart. He had given everything to destroy the mask, but the price of that act is now written on his soul. Naya's face flashes before his eyes, her sacrifice, her final act of redemption. The memory of her lies heavy on him, a reminder that the curse's end came at the cost of her life. She had used her own life force to sever the bond between the village and the mask. Doing so, she ensured their survival, but in the same breath she sealed her fate. Her body is gone, but her spirit lingers in the corners of Kofi's mind, her voice faint but clear. You will carry this burden, Kofi, but you will not carry it alone. The elders gather, their eyes downcast, their faces marked with regret. The weight of their decisions sits upon them like an unseen burden. They had trusted in the mask, believing its power would save them. They had been wrong. Their once unshakable faith in that power has been shattered, and the lesson is one they now carry in their silence. Too late, one of the elders murmurs, his voice cracked with sorrow. We sought power where we should have sought wisdom. Another elder shakes his head, his hands clasped in his lap. We thought we could control it. We were fools. The village is quiet as they reflect on the lesson learned in the hard silence of truth. The mask had promised power, but it had delivered only destruction. And now, there is no undoing the damage it caused, only regret. Kofi, standing apart from the others, feels the cold sting of the mask's legacy deep within him. The village has healed, but he has not. The curse's mark remains on him, a dark stain that no healing can wash away. He feels it like a weight in his chest, a constant reminder that his soul is not his own. He is not the man he once was. The village celebrates its newfound prosperity, the land now rich and full. But Kofi cannot join them. His mind is too clouded, his heart too torn. He questions the cost of what he did, of what he was forced to do. So many innocent lives were touched by the curse, and Nia's life was the ultimate sacrifice. Could it have been avoided? Could there have been another way? The weight of the mask's power, and the power he once held, presses on him like an anchor. The villagers, too, have changed. They move with a new understanding, their faces lined with the knowledge that the world is not always kind, and power is a dangerous thing. They rebuild, but they do so slowly, with care. There is no rush to reclaim what they lost, for they know now that what they have gained is fragile. They honor the memory of those lost, especially Nia, whose sacrifice saved them all. Her name is whispered on the winds, carried by the villagers with reverence. Kofi watches the people rebuild, their lives returning to some semblance of peace. The crops grow tall, and the village hums with the life it had once known. But for Kofi, the path ahead is unclear. He cannot forget the horrors of the mask, nor can he erase the toll it has taken on him. The future of Jiraba, and his own future, lies in a delicate balance. He knows that the pursuit of power, of anything beyond the balance of the world, is a path to ruin. He knows it because he has walked that path, and it has almost destroyed him. In the quiet of the night, Kofi stands, alone gazing at the stars. He knows that he cannot change what has happened, but he can choose how to move forward. He can honor Naya's sacrifice by living in balance, by finding peace within the lessons learned. He can choose to be a keeper of the land, a protector of the delicate balance between power and wisdom. And with that thought, a quiet resolve settles over him. He makes a vow to himself and to Nia's memory. He will never again seek the power that nearly destroyed them all. The curse has been lifted, but the true strength of the village lies not in the power they wield, but in the respect they have for the world around them. Kofi steps away from the crowd into the night, ready to walk the path of balance. The curse may have marked his soul, but it will not define him. The future of Jiraba lies in the choices they make together. And Kofi, with a heart heavy yet resolute, understands at last that the strength of the village lies not in the battles won, but in the wisdom earned. The cycle continues, and with it hope. Kofi stands still at the edge of the sacred forest, his eyes fixed on the vastness before him. The trees sway gently in the wind, their ancient whispers barely audible, as if the forest itself is breathing with the memory of what has passed. The mask is gone, destroyed, yet the weight of its legacy presses on his soul. His hands, scarred from his battle with the dark power, tremble ever so slightly, but it is the quiet turmoil within him that unsettles him the most. The mask may no longer exist in the world, but its shadow remains in Kofi's mind. He can still feel it, the pulsing energy, the whispers of ambition, the hunger for more. It is a presence that cannot be easily erased, no matter how many days pass. It haunts his thoughts, a reminder of the path he took and the price he paid. Even now, standing on the edge of the world he fought so hard to save, Kofi knows that the curse of ambition is not something that fades with the breaking of an object. It is something deeper, woven into the very fabric of who he has become. The truth weighs heavily on him. The allure of power is dangerous. In his pursuit of it, Kofi crossed boundaries he should never have tested. He had sought control, believing that with enough strength he could shape the world to his will. But now he sees the cost of that thirst, the lives lost, the damage done. Power had drawn him in, yes, but it had also blinded him. His ambition had clouded his judgment, led him to make decisions that now, in hindsight, feel like mistakes. He understands now that the path to power is often paved with sacrifices that can never be undone. As his gaze drifts across the horizon, Kofi is struck by the realization that fate, like the mask, is a force beyond control. The choices he made, the steps he took, none of them were entirely his own. He had been guided, influenced by the elders, by the spirits of the land, by forces beyond his understanding. He had thought he was walking alone, forging his own path, but the truth is that his destiny had been shaped by many hands. The mask, the elders' beliefs, even the land itself, each played a part in his journey, pushing him towards the decisions he would make. It is in this moment that Kofi begins to understand the true nature of strength. It is not in conquering the forces of nature or bending them to one's will. No, true strength lies in understanding the forces at play and knowing when to step back. Wisdom, not power, is what sustains life. Harmony with the world around him is the true measure of strength. To act with intention, to know when to fight and when to yield, this is the wisdom he now carries. The mask may have been destroyed, but the greatest lesson Kofi has learned lies not in the object itself, but in the journey that it set in motion. It was not the mask that held the answers, but the people he met along the way, the elders who had misguided him, the spirits who had guided him, and Nia, whose sacrifice had shown him what true selflessness is. It is the choices he made, the people he loved, and the lessons learned from his mistakes that will stay with him forever. The mask may be gone, but the legacy of its lessons lives on within him. Kofi turns away from the forest, his steps slow, but deliberate. He knows now that the village has healed, just as he has begun to heal. The land is fertile again, the crops strong, the people joyful. But both he and the village are forever marked by what they endured. They are not the same as they once were. The trials they faced have shaped them, changed them, and made them stronger in ways they will never fully understand. The scars remain, but they are no longer marks of defeat. They are symbols of resilience. As Kofi walks away, his heart feels lighter than it has in years. He is not free from the shadow of the mask, but he is no longer bound by it. He carries the wisdom of his journey, the lessons of his choices, and the memory of those who sacrificed for the greater good. He knows now that the future of Jiraba lies not in seeking power or fame, but in living in balance with the world around them. The village will grow, but it will grow with respect and understanding, knowing that every force has its cost. Kofi takes one last look at the horizon, his heart filled with a quiet resolve. The world is vast and the future uncertain, but he is ready. He has found his place within it. The journey has ended, but his story and the story of Jiraba has only just begun. The lessons of the mask will live on, not in power but in the wisdom they carry into the future.